Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
An Army initiative that launched in 2024 wants to reshape how soldiers prepare for future wars. But as the Transformation in Contact program has expanded to include the Army National Guard, it's begun to strain the balance between staying ready for today's fight and looking ahead to the next one. Outdated facilities are making it hard to adapt to new technology, and that new technology has started to crowd spaces soldiers still need for regular operations and training. Federal News Network's Rachel Cohen joins me now with more. Rachel, it's great to have you.
Hello, Terry.
Tell us about this program. What is Transformation in Contact, and what is it trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so Transformation in Contact, previously called Transforming in Contact, depending on what era you know it from, is really the Army's flagship modernization effort. And so it's, instead of going through, kind of the labs, program offices, the normal flow of things, they're saying, all right, we're going to put people out in the field, out in training, and hand them, the new stuff, and just throw them out there and see how it works. Let them use it. Let them mess up with it. And, hopefully, the idea is by doing that, you can cut down on the time it takes to troubleshoot things and ultimately get it into regular service. So an example of one of the things that's being fielded to the Army as part of this, in the Guard specifically, is the infantry squad vehicle. And so that's going to replace the Humvees, the high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicles, if you want to use the fun long name, as well as, other kind of network upgrades and things like that.
How has the Army National Guard been involved in Transformation in Contact?
Yeah, so after TIC had been around for about a year, the Army said, we're going to start looping the Guard in. So that has expanded now to several different units. So the 38th Infantry Division in the Indiana Guard, the 116th Mobile Brigade Combat Team in the Virginia Guard, the 76th Mobile Brigade Combat Team, and the 138th Field Artillery Brigade in the Kentucky Guard. And so those, they're trying to prove out, does this kind of acceleration of tech adoption work on the part-time side of things? And, they're seeing, do the needs differ in the Guard? What does the Guard need to make this a reality?
The Guard is typically at the tail end of any modernization cycle. They get new stuff last. So how is this push to get them new stuff kind of at the same time as the active forces interfacing with their capacity and their capability? Are they able to bring this new technology in and actually work with it?
So that's where they're running into issues. The Army wrote a report to Congress recently that said, we've got all of these facilities that are vastly outdated, decades old, billions and billions and billions of dollars needed to restore them, to update them, to really get them to the place that they need to be to connect to these systems, to have enough space for these new systems. And so because, the Army Guard is now bringing on new tech earlier than it might otherwise, but its facilities are not being upgraded on that same timeline, it's that clash of old and new is something the Guard has started kind of raising alarms about.
There's also a standing tension between the National Guard being an asset of the state governor and the Army's ability to mobilize the Guard for national missions. How is this new technology affecting the Guard's ability to do its current job?
Yeah, so as the new systems come in, the units haven't necessarily started getting rid of the old stuff. So, picture it like you're in the market for a new car, but you already have 5 cars in your garage. I don't know who has 5 cars in their garage, but you're trying to bring on new cars before you get rid of the old cars, right? So they're bringing on, new infantry squad vehicles. They haven't gotten rid of the old Humvees, things like that. And it's making it difficult for them to do the maintenance jobs that they need to do on the stuff that they already have. Things are not necessarily being taken care of properly because they just don't have enough sort of shelters. Things are outside when they should be inside, things like that. So it's really force the Guard to take a look at, how do we try and balance these two things if one set of equipment isn't moving out as fast as we might need it to?
Sounds like a real disconnect in process and priorities there. Is it up to the Guard to fix this and address the problem? If so, what can they do?
So they've issued more guidance on the process of offloading the older equipment. So they're not running into, or the goal is for them to not run into as much red tape and free up space. They are paying more attention to burnout among troops, who are being asked to not only, prep for current deployments, and do their, regular slew of training, but now they're also being asked to, hey, go play around with this, the latest gadget that Transformation Contact is trying out. It's a more frequent kind of flow of people, and, their barracks are really old, their offices are really old, and so they're looking at ways, including going to Congress and saying, look, we need way more money than we have to fix that. And the NDAA notably has an amendment in the House that would let them take grant money from the states to fix up facilities. So that opens another path that they didn't necessarily have before, which is basically just depending on federal dollars to do that.
So, Rachel, this sounds like it's a pretty tricky coordination problem. How do you think it ultimately gets resolved?
Yeah, they laid out in an email to me, they laid out kind of what they see as the lessons learned and their next steps. And they said better communication, strategic thinking is really essential at the state and territory level, as well as the federal level that is, the federal thought process that's being put into Transformation in Contact. They said, synchronized operations with working groups that constantly communicate will help them find issues earlier. So hopefully that communication piece is improving as we go along, and being flexible, saying, yes, we know that we want to make a new set of upgrades in the next year and a half to 2 years, which is kind of the iteration speed of this. But, if we can't hit that because of Iran, or because of, border deployments, or because, DC deployments, what have you, they're acknowledging we need to be flexible here, and we need to not burn everybody out.
That's Federal News Network's Rachel Cohen. Rachel, thanks for this update.
Thank you, Terry.
You can find her story at federalnewsnetwork.com.